Welcome back, everyone. So today, as I mentioned before in the previous lesson, I will talk about how we can apply Bloom's taxonomy in a real example when you are learning new information, and how you would use higher order learning instead of lower order learning to learn something more quickly, more easily, and remember it better as well. So let's start with the example of what I was talking about in the previous lessons, which was basically food. And if we look at the items of food which we have to learn, let's say we have these items. So you have apples, bananas, then you've got rice, beef, and chicken. Now, normally when you learn anything new, and basically what that means is you're learning words that you don't know the meanings of, you're not familiar with, and you need to know what they mean. You would basically learn them one by one. So you would look up in the dictionary what was the meaning of apples, then bananas, then rice, and then beef, and then chicken. And what happens is once you learn the meanings of something, you try and remember them. And that's how you write notes. So like if you would look up in the dictionary that apples are a sweet fruit, then you would do the same thing for banana, and you would find that banana also is sweet fruit. So you would say bananas are a fruit or a sweet fruit. And then you would write these out like you would do your notes. And then you would continue. So rice is a grain. Beef is protein. And chicken is a protein. So when you make learning in this way, you're simply just looking up definitions and you're writing out your notes of the definitions of each of the words you're learning. And then you try to remember those words and their definitions. This is the hard way, and this takes a lot of time, and it's very difficult. And you have to keep repeating this process. You have to keep trying to remember what you learned of the definitions the previous time that you studied them, of those same words, and you have to write them out again and again and again. And this is a very tedious, time-consuming, and difficult process, and it doesn't really, it's not really that effective. What is more effective is if we look at the Bloom's taxonomy triangle, as we discussed last time. The bottom is remember and understand. These two are what we normally talk about in terms of lower order learning. But these levels of thinking don't apply now to information when it gets much more numerous and detailed, as when you get older and you have to study for your exams for GCSEs and A-levels, and you have to do those higher subjects. It becomes much more difficult to learn in a simpler way through lower order learning. So you would switch now to higher order, where you would analyze the information first. So I've put a 1 here next to the word analyze in the hierarchy. That would be the first thing you would do. And then secondly, I would suggest doing evaluation of that same word or words, and then to see where they apply. So this is the higher order learning sequence. So if I now switch to higher order learning, instead of jumping straight away to definitions and finding out what each of the words mean and then trying to remember them, let's look at how to analyze all these words together. Now you can see here that if we compare and contrast, which is what we do when we analyze, we group the words into groups that are related. So you would say apples and bananas would form one group, and then rice would form a second group, and beef and chicken would fall into the final third group. So we make 3 groups of words, all interconnected. Why? Because they all fall under the group of food. Essentially, all of these are related to food, and they are food. So from this, you can see that we've already compared and contrasted. So we've seen that apples and bananas are similar to each other, so they make one group. And then the third group is rice on its own because it's a grain. And the third group is beef and chicken because they're proteins, basically meat. But everything falls under the bigger heading of food. Now we can further elaborate on this diagram and say that if you have food, then under food you've got three categories now of types of food, such as fruit, grain, and protein. And under the specific, under the general headings, you've got specific examples of the actual words that you're trying to learn, like beef, chicken, and then rice. And then under fruit, you would have apples, bananas. So you can see from this that we have organized the information in a way that we can see how everything is connected together and how it relates to one another. So this is our analyze level here in the Bloom's taxonomy triangle. After this, we can evaluate and see the importance of these facts, whether one is more important than the other and what effect they have. Not just the fact that these are different groups of items that are interconnected, but what is the effect? And that's what we will discuss in the next lesson after this.